All right, folks, hey on out there, and I'm waiting for this to load up on my page. Thanks for joining me here. We'll take a little bit of a slower dive into some of the data. There I go. I see myself now, so it looks like all is good. Hopefully you folks can see me out there as well. If you want to talk to me or send me a note, it's probably best if you send it to J. Grymes, WAFB. That'll be the easiest place for me to catch it and keep up with it. So we're going to give folks an extra minute or two to get on board with us here, and then we will pick it up from there. So again, thanks for joining us. I see a couple of thumbs up already. Folks are starting to line up. And again, what I really want to do is want to just go a little bit slower through the river stages here. We'll talk just a bit about what's coming up over the next 24 to 48 hours, just briefly in terms of rainfall and what we do and don't know, or the uncertainties that are in the picture here in terms of, and for most of us, the big story is the uncertainty about how much more rain could we see over the next 48 hours. We'll talk about that, because if there's going to be any significant rain coming, most of our guidance says it's going to be from Baton Rouge northward, which means it's going to fall in the middle and upper portions of most of the river drainage basins, the places we don't really care to see it the most. So the question will be the amount, and between now and Saturday, and particularly for the Commute River, it'll also be about that distribution of the rain. If you join me at 6 o'clock, showed a couple of times, what we're expecting tomorrow is a wave of rain that'll come rolling in here during the early to mid-morning hours. Won't be a big deal, but it might kind of make a bit of a mess for the morning commute. And then the big rains will start to show up during the afternoon and extend into the evening and night. And then the question becomes, how big are those big rains going to be? The rains will extend into Saturday, but I think Saturday's not going to be a pretty day, but I think it's mainly going to be showers. I'm not really worried about thunderstorms, at least not an active weather day on Saturday in terms of big widespread thunderstorms. But Saturday's contribution to the rain totals, I think, will be relatively minimal. The real question is, how much are we going to get from about midday to early afternoon Friday into late Friday night? So that's going to be the big question there, and I'll keep up with you all as we look at this, and hopefully you've had a chance to join us. I will say that we were kind of giving you the heads up about a bump up on the rivers, and in fact that did materialize, and it's not that we were seeing things that the Weather Service wasn't, but the forecasting procedure for the Lower Mississippi River Forecast Center, the folks that do these forecasts, they only run the models to include typically 24 to 48 hours of forecasted rain. Now, if there's a request, and not a request from people like me, but if there's a request from an agency or one of the other Weather Service offices for them to push that forecasted rain out farther, say 3 days or so, they can do that, but they don't do it typically. So when I see a forecast that comes from them, and I know that it's got 2 days worth of rain in it, and we've got another 2 days of rain behind it, that tells me right away. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's almost certain that the forecasted crest is too low because it's not including all the rain that we're anticipating over time. So let's go ahead and get to it. Rachel pointing out that it has been relatively quiet today after we got through the morning. The morning rumblers, boy, I don't know about you, but it sure got my attention. It woke me up, started about, actually what woke me up are my dogs, because my dogs hear it before I do, and they're not really happy about lightning and thunder. So they started prancing at about, I'd say 4:45. And then by about 5:30, that's when things really started to rock and roll. And so that was sort of my wake-up call at that point. There really wasn't any chance for any opportunity to go back to bed after that. So got up for that with the dogs, and hey, it's what we do, right? Isn't it what we all do? You deal with the animals and you try and get through the day. I'm going to add up, I'm looking up just one more page here, so bear with me for a second. Giving folks, again, one more chance to kind of get on board with us here. Once I've got that ready to go, we'll get rolling. So there we go. I'm seeing if it's in, yep, okay, I've got it on the weather page too. So between the two of them, I think we've probably got it handled. Again, if you've got questions, I'm seeing some of the comments, thank you. The best place to put the comments, the place I'm most likely to see them, are going to be at J. Grymes, WAFB. Question here, flooding is still moderate, if any at all. Oh, well, I mean, the flooding, street flooding is going to be limited, but almost every one of our local rivers are either already at flood or going to get there soon. We're going to talk about that here in a few minutes, and that's the whole point of this, to get us a perspective here. And by the way, I talked about this yesterday, want to do it again. I've been talking with lots of people that are kind of stressing about this event. Let's put this in perspective, because lots of folks are having these August 2016 flashbacks. Best way to put it in perspective, I think, is simply talk about the rainfall numbers. Yeah, the rivers respond to the rainfall, and here's the deal. In 2016, in the Baton Rouge metro area, we averaged anywhere, in terms of rainfall for that event, the rain totals ranged from 15 inches to 30 inches. Huge, huge numbers, even if we spread it over 3 or 4 days, gigantic numbers. And yeah, for the peak numbers were something on the order of 24, 25 inches in just 2 of those 4 days. Most of that rain, that 30 inches, most of it fell in about 60 hours or so. So 15 to 30 inches then. This go around, we're looking at, we'll even go on the high side. Most of the area is seeing rainfall totals thus far that are running on the order of 4 to 6 or 7 inches, with some bigger totals south of Baton Rouge. But let's say this event is basically going to be 6 to 8 inches, with maybe a few spots getting some double-digit totals. So 2016, 15 to 30. This time, 6 to 8. Not even close. So I know it's not easy to do. I'm not telling you anything other than simply trying to reassure you this is not going to be anything close to what we saw in 2016. All right, let's get to it and start looking at a couple of things. First thing I want to do is take a look at the rainfall forecast that we know is, or that we think is coming here. So stepping forward ahead to our next slide, and rainfall across the area. So here is what we're anticipating through Friday afternoon into the evening. Now here's the thing. Remember, we're going to have one little round of rain early on Friday. I don't think that's going to amount to much. It's just going to be nuisance rain for the most part, because it's going to probably show up right around the time some of you are trying to drive into work. But as we get into the afternoon and evening, that's when the next wave is going to come. So this is rainfall through 7 p.m. So we're only starting to get through what I think is going to be the biggest dose of rain that will be essentially from the mid-late afternoon into the late night on Friday. And what we have here then basically is from Baton Rouge southward, we're talking about essentially a ½ an inch of rain or less. But that's not really what the rivers are concerned about. For the rivers, you look up here. And up here now we're talking about a ½ an inch to maybe an inch to maybe an inch and a half. But keep in mind, that's only through 7 p.m. When we take all of the rain, and again, we're going to have rain on Saturday too, but Saturday totals are going to be pretty minimal, I'm thinking right now. Maybe early Saturday morning as that first wedge of Friday night rain start to wind down. But Saturday during the day, I don't think is going to be a big deal. But right now, the Weather Prediction Center is talking about rainfall totals through the weekend, basically through Saturday, that are going to range from about an inch or so along the I-1012 interstate corridor, that west to east corridor here, an inch to 2.5 to maybe even some pockets of 3 inches of rain. Now, we get up to that 2 and 3 inch rain total up here in the upper reaches of the Amite, upper reaches of the Tickfall and the Tangipahoa basins, that's going to be a little bit of a problem and going to drive the rivers up even more. So we've already seen one thing. If you've been watching the river stages today, you've noticed they've gone up, and the arrival time of the crests have also been pushed back a little bit. So let's go ahead and step into that right now. And we'll start off with Denim Springs. Now, folks, I know I show this during the shows, and this graphic really, it's way too much information to try and absorb in those little 90-second windows that I have to give you the river data. So we have the chance to walk through it a little more slowly. So Denim Springs, about an hour and a half ago or so, was at 30 feet. So it's already in flood. When you see the numbers in orange on this graphic, it means that's above flood stage. So in this case, for example, Denim Springs, Bayou Manchac, and French Settlement are already above flood stage. Denim Springs, the forecast right now has gone to 32, but that is not including a 2 or 3 inch dosing of rain in the upper portion of the basin. So this number may go up if that 2 to 3 inches of rain materializes Friday evening, Friday night into Saturday. And the question really is, our models aren't locked in on that number. So if we can keep that rainfall total in the upper portion of the basin at 2 inches or less, this might be a pretty good forecast. But if we get 2 inches or more, then this probably goes up another foot anyway. So I would say plan on Denim Springs maybe going to 33, maybe even 33 and change, and hope that it doesn't happen. But that's still manageable for most of you. But at 32 feet, we start seeing some problems around the area. Bayou Manchac going to 11.5, and I'm pretty comfortable with that number. I could see it maybe going a little higher. Port Vincent. Remember yesterday, it wasn't going into flood, and I told you then it was going into flood. Now forecast to go to 8.5, and I think that may be a shade low. The other thing to notice is how long these waters are likely to stay in flood. Denim Springs could be into Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening before it drops below flood stage at 29. Bayou Manchac Point's going to be in flood probably into the middle of the week. Port Vincent coming back down Monday afternoon, Monday evening. That seems a little fast for me. And then French Settlement, what happened here was the officials in French Settlement asked the Weather Service to go ahead and give them a forecast. It's not a traditional forecast point because French Settlement gets impacted by tidal surge. But the folks down there said, hey folks, Weather Service, give us a number to work with. And so they've come up with 4.7, and that seems pretty reasonable. But again, down there, that water's going to stay high for a while. So the bottom line is Amite Basin going into flood. Flood numbers are higher today than they were yesterday. Wouldn't be shocked if we see them get nudged up again tomorrow, particularly if the big rains start to materialize as we get into Friday afternoon, Friday evening. So I'm going to leave the Amite Basin there. We're going to move on through and try and get done here in 30 minutes or so. Give a quick look at some of the numbers here, some of you, the comments here. Hello to all of you from the folks that are out there, and thanks for joining me again today. All right, here you go then. We're going to go from the Amite. Oh, by the way, I did throw in a couple of slides here that wanted to look at, that's the numbers. Here's the graphic representation. Remember yesterday and the day before, I told you that the crest that occurred last weekend, there was no way we weren't going to top that this time. And you see, clearly we're already there, and the forecast there at 32 feet. Now, the one thing that I like to look at is this trend line matching up with the forecast line. In this case, it's pretty close, although it may be rising just a tad faster than the forecast line calls for. But the big story for Denim Springs is going to be how much rain do we get up above Denim Springs, obviously. Do we see that 2 to 2.5 to 3 inch forecasted number in the upper portion of the basin? By the way, I had some people ask me about Magnolia and Darlington. Both of those right now on the Amite are expected to stay below flood stage. If we get some really big numbers up there, Both of those sites may approach flood, but I still think they'll probably stay at or below flood stage. Magnolia may get to flood stage. I think Darlington is going to stay below flood stage. Now, folks north of Darlington, I had someone ask me about the high water they're seeing up there. And I'll be honest with you, I don't have a gauge up there, and I don't have a whole lot of local familiarity with the Amite River as it crosses up in the northern portion of East Feliciana Parish and crosses the state line. So I'm going to have to leave that to your locals there to give you a sense of what's going on. Yeah, there's water everywhere up there, but my impression is that that's not unusual when the river gets this high and goes into flood. So there you are with Denim Springs. And a quick look at Port Vincent here. And you can see it has been rising fairly steadily. And so I'm a little nervous here. Now this again, looking at the trend line, I'm a little nervous here at how the trend kind of calls for it to sort of stay flat from today through midday tomorrow. It may not rise much, but I think it might get a little bit above the forecast here. And that's why I'm a little bit nervous that 8.5 might just be a little too low. I don't think it's going to go over 9, but I think 8.5 may be a little bit on the low side for Port Vincent, again, depending on how much water comes downhill. All right, the Commute at Jor. This is one of my, actually one of my favorite gauges to watch. I mean, it impacts thousands, even tens of thousands of people. It's an important one there, but it's also because it's a flashy river. Now, it's crested once. It went to 22 feet. It's now down to close to 21, and it's been falling just about a foot over the last, just about a foot over the last 8 hours or so. Now, we're not going to really see any rain for another 10 hours or so, assuming that the forecast that I have for rains getting in here tomorrow morning is roughly correct. So we could see this river drop another foot or more, the Commute drop at Jor drop another foot or more before it starts to rise. And so I'm thinking that 24-foot forecast may be on the high side because the river's going to come down. Yeah, we're going to get rain tomorrow, but I don't think, first of all, that we're going to get that much rain in the Commute sub-basin because it doesn't extend as far north as the Amite does. So maybe in the Commute Basin we can say 1 inch to 1.5 inches more rain. Certainly we'll get a rebound on the Commute, but I don't think we're going to see this 24 unless it gets really, really wet in the upper portion of that smaller basin. By the way, for our friends on the Talmany there at Baptist, it's already crested. So this forecast for 16.5, which would have meant minor flooding, that's not going to happen. Even if we do get some rain, that basin doesn't reach far enough into the upper portion of the Florida parishes to be a real problem. I could see maybe a little bit of a rise tomorrow, but we're not going to reach flood stage at Baptist there. So you guys can go ahead and relax a little bit. So here's a look at the Commute, and you see the big spike we had last weekend and that big steady drop. There's one round of rain. Here's another round of rain. There's our recent round of rain, and notice it's starting to come down. So if it can drop, say, another foot between now and tomorrow morning, you can see why this forecast, which had it actually still rising now while it's falling, that's why I think this 24-foot forecast for the Commute at Jor is probably high, and it may even be high by a couple of feet. I could see us getting back to 22 feet with a good rain tomorrow into Saturday, but I just don't think we're going to get to that 24 because we're probably going to get down to about here before we start to rise again. Oh, the other thing you'll notice also, that is supposed to happen tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Well, the rains are just starting to get here tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So this forecast is a bust, not only for its number, but for its timing. If we see another crest on the Commute and the Commute at Jor, that's going to be later on Friday, maybe even not until Friday night and into early Saturday when that next round of rain gets in here. So you folks on the Commute, bottom line is you're going to get a drop and probably get another rise. So don't be fooled by the fact that the water is going down right now. All right. Let's step on through here and we'll head over to the Tickfall. Now in the Tickfall, Liverpool and Montpelier, both already in flood. And in fact, you can see Liverpool has already reached its forecasted crest, at least the one that I had earlier today. And we're a day away. So this 9.5 is probably wrong. Now, we may see this Liverpool drop a bit as it waits for Friday's rains, but I think we're probably going to get above 9.5. We're at 9.5 now, or we're at 9.5 this afternoon. Probably gets a little higher than that. And Montpelier probably is going to get maybe at or above that 14-foot forecast crest. Getting down to Holden, I think 16.5 may be pretty good based upon how much rain that we could get over the next day or two. 17 not out of the question, but I don't think it goes much higher than that. And for you folks down at the bottom of the Tickfall at Killian, you're probably going to stay at or above 4 feet for a good long while. Probably extends well into next week before you start to see that water really start to drop off, because you got all that water heading downhill. Now, the good news is we've had a little bit of a northerly component to the wind. Front is actually sagged out south of us, so got a little bit of a northerly component. It's more east than north, which isn't a good thing, but a little bit of a north means that we may get a little bit of a drainage out of Amarapal, but probably not all that much. So let's take a look at a couple of sites there very quickly. And you'll notice here Tickfall at Holden, way off on the forecast, but I do think we're going to see a later rise coming. The forecast is actually, you're seeing it dropping off here. And I think we will see a rise coming once that water up farther river, Liverpool, heads on downhill, and then we get that second dose of rain on Friday into early Saturday. But I don't think we have to worry too much about the number getting higher than 16.5. I think 17 is something you might want to think about. But to tell you the truth, I think there's a real possibility, if we don't get a whole lot of rain Friday, that 16.5 won't materialize. That's obviously good news for you. And then we'll head over down to, it's called the Tickfield River at or near Springfield. We all know it as Killian. You see it's been floating around at 4 and change for a while, and it's probably going to stay there. Probably gets up to maybe 4.5 or more when the big water finally comes downhill, and then it's probably going to stay up way into next week. So you folks down there, you know what that means. That's the nuisance flooding for most of you. All right, heading over to the Tangi, and I got to admit, up until today, or up until now, I've only been showing Robert. Give you a little heads up, upriver. Osika, supposed to be cresting at 15.5 now. It's not there, probably not going to get there. Some good news there. Kentwood is at 12.2, supposed to crest at 13 tomorrow morning. I don't think that it's going to get there. Good news there. Unfortunately, the gauge at Amite is out. Robert, though, you're up near your crest at 19 feet. You're going to see a little bit of a rise over the coming days, but you're going to stay in flood at the bottom end of the Tangipahoa River there. You're going to stay in flood deep into next week. So just be prepared for a nice long run. You can see it there. In fact, this is Tangipahoa, Robert, and you get the impression that maybe it's going to spike over that 19 feet given the current rate of rise. It's almost at 19 feet now. I think it will flatten out. It really doesn't become a big problem down there until you get well above 20 feet. I mean, I know at 19 feet some of you are having issues, but it's not a widespread problem. The question then becomes just how long before it finally gets back down to a manageable level, and that's going to be a while now. So with that, basically, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Let me see if I got any questions from you all. Otherwise, we'll show you another update at 10 o'clock. But again, it'll be rather quickly through those gauges. That's the problem about trying to do the river gauges during the shows. They just don't really have enough, provide us with enough time. Not seeing much in the way of any kind of questions. Why are we flooding halfway up my yard at Killian on the Tickfall? It doesn't seem that bad. at Kings Point or Terry Harbor. Okay, I know these places, but I don't know how the river behaves down there that well. So I'm afraid that you're going to need to talk to one of the local experts on why you're seeing this issue down on the bottom end of the Tickfall there. The Haymeet River is high. Yes, it absolutely is, and it's going to stay that way. And Coleal Bay, yep, that's going to stay high too. As long as the Haymeet's up, you guys all interact with it. Coleal Creek is a linkage there that's going to be high as long as the Haymeet is high. And hey, Amy, good to see you there. Hey, Fernando, thank you. So, looks like I've really got no questions over there. Don't see really Keith from Pier Part. I say hey, Keith, to you there. I got to admit, I haven't talked much about the basin and haven't really been ready to. Yeah, water is high in the Atchafalaya Basin too because the Mississippi River is high. But the good news on the Mississippi is it's nowhere near as high as it's been in the last few years. And it's right at about crest, which means, and keep in mind, since we divert part of the Mississippi in the Atchafalaya, once that Mississippi starts to fall, the Atchafalaya Basin will start to fall a little bit as well. So a little bit of good news there. All right, so for your day tomorrow, I've got rain chances at 40% in the morning, dropping off to 20 to 30%. And that might even be a little high during the late morning hours. I think it could actually get a little on the dry side, a little dry out after a wave comes through here during the morning, but it's during the afternoon and into the evening that we're going to get the big stuff. And that's where we have to be worried about that potential for as much as 1 to 3 inches from Baton Rouge northward, which would feed into all your rivers. So keep it in mind, we have extended that flash flood watch through Saturday. Actually, until this is kind of weird, Weather Service. The flash flood watch is until 1 o'clock on the west side of the Atchafalaya Basin. It's till noon on Saturday, east side of the Atchafalaya Basin, even though the rains are going to end over here first. But just keep it in mind, it's just a relative number. I think the real flood threat in terms of flash flooding, not river flooding, flash flooding will probably come to an end Friday night, long before we get into midday. But we'll still have a few showers on Saturday, and then we get the good stuff. As I said at 6 o'clock today, Sunday's going to be your lawn maintenance and yard mowing day, and we got a nice string of weather that follows in behind that, back to some really good-looking spring days, dry, low humidity, comfortable temperatures. Going to be a nice week, and that'll be the time that we'll be sitting back and waiting for the rivers to drop back off as we get into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I'm going to leave it there. See you at 10. Thanks so much for joining us.